All right, everyone. Hello. Can you all hear me? Wave. Yeah. Awesome. Well, welcome. Um, I am Jamie Marshall. I'm the executive director of St. Louis Park Friends of the Arts, and I'm super glad to have you all here for our first ever virtual open mic poetry jam. I want to give a shout out to Dan Israel, St. Louis Park resident, whose music we were just hearing. So a couple of housekeeping things. This was what was just on your screen a moment ago, but I'll just run through it real quick. So please, if you're comfortable, turn on your video. We'd love to see you, help create a sense of community here as we're all in our own homes. And then if you can click participants, should be at the bottom of your screen, and it'll bring up a bunch of names. The top one is you. If that says anything other than your actual first and last name or first name, if you would click it or click more and then rename, put your first and last name or your name and last initial. If there's more than one of you there, put everybody down in there. We'd love to know who's in the room. And then from that same screen, if you would like to read tonight, if you are a poet and you'd like to read, just click that raise hand button if you haven't already. There should be a little blue hand that comes up next to your name there. That's how I will know who is in the queue and who to introduce when they're ready to read. I've got the list of people who registered through Eventbrite as well, but click that raise hand and be sure that that blue hand is up next to your name. So a couple of things about Friends of the Arts, the organization that's hosting this event. We're a nonprofit that builds community through the arts in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. And we support and celebrate artists and the creativity in everyone. We bring arts into public spaces like streets and parks and trails, and we bring people together. We help to form connections in the community through events like these. And so just because we're all in our own homes right now does not mean that we don't need this community and this connection. We probably need it more than ever. So really glad to have you all in here for this virtual poetry jam. So since we are all apart and we can't be together and celebrate in the way we normally would by applauding and snapping and laughing and crying and expressing ourselves in the way we would if we were all in a room together, I'd like everyone to please use the chat function. Should be able to pull that up when you see the box there. If everyone could just let us know where you are tuning in from tonight, put your city, your neighborhood, say hello to the other people who are in here, and let's start to use that space as a way to connect how we might if we were all in a room together. And when I introduce poets, when poets are reading, after a poet is done, since we can't give them that applause and it's sort of weird to read a poem in your own home without an audience, let them know your appreciation. Put a bunch of exclamation points or emojis or woohoos or whatever in the chat so that people can feel supported and loved. If you hear a line in a poem that you really loved that resonated, put it in there in the chat, let people know so we can make sure that all of our poets feel appreciated for their offerings here. So use that chat function. Without further ado, I will go ahead and introduce our first poet of the evening. It's the community poet of St. Louis Park. She earned that title in 2010 in the Friends of the Arts Our Town Verses and Voices event. She's hosted many poetry jams in St. Louis Park. She has curated poems for the city school calendar. She has facilitated community poems. Her poetry is inscribed in some benches around sculptures in St. Louis Park. And I'm so glad to introduce Diane Pecoraro, who I'm unmuting now. Diane, take it away.
Hello, everyone out there. This is quite exciting, actually. And what a poetic day, right? I mean, couldn't have a more poetic day. So we're doing this in honor of National Poetry Month, which is all of April. And so we're on the sort of front end of events. What I've been doing for the past 4 weeks is trying to get up every morning and write something, some little rhyme about what's going on in our lives right now. It's been an interesting project, and I wrote one this morning, so I thought I would read this one fresh off the press. And, you know, we've been looking at shelves and everything is out of this, out of that. My son called from California and said we're out of beef. So I wrote a poem called Out of. Out of long, empty shelves. Hard at work, those TP elves. Annoying, but we move on. Instead of beef, we'll try bison. Ground pork, chicken, maybe tofu. Soy is supposed to be so good for you. The Aldi clerk hands me the last tissue box, recites its uses chock-a-block. It can be toilet paper, napkins, it can wipe the table. Buy it and run while you're still able. Doing with, doing without, or making do. We're adapting quickly to change pace and cue. Bright side, this terrible COVID situation is leading us all toward mind rotation. Out of our comfort zones, we try harder, allow different foods into our larder. Having now been handed the task, we fold an old t-shirt into a protective mask. That's it.
Thank you, Diane, for getting us started. Let's see it in the chat. If you appreciate Diane's reading, please let everyone know in their exclamation points. Will make do for applause. A fitting poem to start us out here about this current situation and some of the sort of lighter thoughts about it that I really appreciate. I had the pleasure of being with Diane and two other local poets, Mary Christine Cain, who I believe will be joining us here if she's not already, and Deborah Stone. And we recorded a little poetry event where the three of them read, and we talked a little bit about inspiration and poetry in these moments. And Mary offered some writing prompts, which was really fun. So that is posted on our YouTube channel and Facebook page. So if you want to check out some more poems, we'll hear from Diane again this evening, but I will go now to some readers on my list. I have Christopher Evans and looks like Deborah with him there. And if you've got two of you, feel free to go back to back, or if you want to read for one of you and then pass it back to me, that is just fine as well. So I'm unmuting you. You've got the floor. Take it away.
Thank you. It's really great to be here tonight. And thank you so much for the poem that was already read tonight. It's beautiful. Just really appreciate the sense of community, and it's wonderful to be here. So Deborah, do you want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay, I'll read two poems and then Deborah will read. Okay. So again, my name is Christopher Evans and live on South Florida Avenue in St. Louis Park. This one is called Only the Continuing Strain. Walking this country road, thoughts come and go quickly, like the small birds that land on the wire fence of the pasture. Thoughts as constant as the flock with a mini flurry all rush at once into the grass. We are always thinking, imagining to be diligent and firm, having no hypocrisy, but we could be as easily in the opposite direction with no overwhelming conviction or offense, only the continuing strain. The only action thus is to be kind to others for the sake of kindness, for the mercy of mercy, for the desire not to scatter all, for all will go in all directions with one unkind word. And this next poem is called Grand Illusion. It rains. I play the accordion. I walk the unpaved road. People stop on their way to the lake. They roll down their windows. They smile and ask me to play Happy Birthday. I play. I'm playing my dreams, playing into the past, into the future. I'm not here in the body or in this instrument. There's no afternoon or road or gently falling rain, no happy birthday tune, no people enjoying the song. We're all discovering over and over again a grand illusion, one that is as amazing as it is heartbreaking. Loving it is like an afternoon with gently falling rain on a road with mysterious persons meeting and parting. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deborah. I have 3 short poems here. The first one is called Now. The angst of youth is gone, left behind for ghosts to find among the rubble of past lives. There is now, now, always now. When I try to lose myself in past or future, I am found again today, this hour, this minute, this second. Ever and never are so finite. I want to be transiting, transcending, or like a drop of water, pure, small, ephemeral, and lucid. And the next one is Recollection. I sit still on the bench of recollection, floating through my mind's eye, like a distillation of picture postcards, memories so light and subtle, more like gauze and sunlight, dreamscape sensory, deja vu vision, pebbled beaches, windswept dunes, laughter and lamentation, nightmares in paradise, fantasies in fragments, deadlocked and undecided, done with madness, slapped silly, now fully awake. Just scraps of me I've been meaning to gather into something cohesive, but I fade and flicker in the wind like moonlight in and out of clouds. I'm seen like beauty and light, then darkened to a pinhole projection of a promise. No more giving away the substance of my soul to any slick passers-by. Now, I gather my little bits of me I forgot along the way and gently press them back into my spine. I rise from this place like a queen and stride into my life. And the last one is called Chrysalis. Lost in winter's withered womb, I checked out, letting it all go, giving it away, no home. Unsettled in a cocoon of contemplation, hanging on to a thin, crusty piece of me, dying, suffering the rage of loss, I looked up through a pinprick of hope and saw light. Chrysalis, confined like a bird in a cage, struggling for a new life, I emerge alive. Chrysalis confined, springtime's charity, benevolent queen, I try my new wings on for size, butterflies. That's it.
Thank you, Christopher and Deborah. That was beautiful. Very nicely done. I'm getting to see Christopher, his art in a couple of forms. Christopher is one of the artists who exhibited in our St. Louis Park and Golden Valley Artist Showcase. We had that in January, back when we were able to gather together in person. Some really beautiful kind of abstract paintings that were on display. Since we aren't able to be in galleries, yeah, you can see some of his work above them there. Since we aren't able to be gathering in person and going to galleries and seeing visual artwork in the way we typically do, we do have that artist showcase exhibit up on our website, so you can see Christopher's work as well as about 35 other local artists from St. Louis Park and Golden Valley. A lot of really beautiful stuff. So thank you, Christopher and Deborah, for that poetry. One thing that this stay-at-home order has led to are a lot of virtual events like this, and it's been a way to connect with people around us virtually, but it's also been a way to connect with people who we might not have otherwise, people from all around the world, all around the country, joining together in these kind of intimate spaces. So I'm going to turn next to Anitra, who I got to talk to yesterday when we were just messing with some of this technology. So Anitra, I will unmute you here and let us know where you're reading from, and looking forward to hearing your work. Take it away, Anitra.
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Anitra. I'm reading from Kentucky, a newbie here, so please bear with me. And one thing that I've found is with the quarantine, fear has no place in any of us. So I wanted to write a piece about love. And sometimes love, it has no distinct feeling or, I don't know, sound, smell. So I just articulated a few things that it could be if one's away from their loved ones and close their eyes and what it could sound like for them. Here we go. So the sounds of love. It sounds like a baby cooing whose head lays softly against his mother's bra strap. It sounds like the force of nationwide militias gathering for action and combat. It sounds like the friction of two bodies bonded in the crackling of engulfed flames. It sounds like the roar of a lion and the whimper of a beast that's been tamed. It sounds like shuffled card decks between fingers unafraid to lose. It sounds like hymns of gospel solemnly uplifting the blues. It sounds like flooded Katrina barricades drowning out the unheard. It sounds like the silent distance sitting between all of our unspoken words. It sounds like sailing winds between distant lands, both charted and uncharted. It sounds like the hollow soul cries within longing for our dearly departed. It sounds like the pulsating of an unborn heartbeat echoing through a sonogram. It sounds like simple pleasantries due unto our elders. Yes, sir, or no, ma'am. It sounds like a collective high-pitched frequency vibrating through the universe. It sounds like angelic harmonies from a choir that's been well rehearsed. It sounds like ocean tides leaping and crashing under a moonlit sky. It sounds like always wanting to say hello and never wanting to say goodbye. Thank you.
Wow, Anitra, thank you so much for sharing that. That was really powerful. Thank you. You said you're a newbie, but that was really lovely. Thank you. It's so great to have all of you in here. We've got more than 20 folks in here right now. If anybody has joined and didn't hear the sort of housekeeping notes at the beginning, if you are hoping to read tonight, if you haven't read yet, please click participants and then click the raise hand button so that I know you are looking to read tonight. I will turn next to someone I know quite well, Jim Mcdonough. He's a board member of Friends of the Arts. He's the board chair of the Park Theater Company, so a theater guy and a man about town in St. Louis Park. Jim Mcdonough, take it away.
Thanks, Jamie and Diane, for hosting this. The title of my poem is Viral Wars. It's nature's way of telling you something's wrong. Look what's going on inside you. It's nature's way of telling you it is strong. You can't see it. You can't feel it. You can't smell it. You can't taste it. You can't hear it. But it can still make you sick. Name it, claim it. COVID-19, a viral pandemic. It threatens humanity. It threatens our sanity. Stay strong, stay away. Hey, what's that smell? It's the smell of death around you. It's nature's way of telling us in the breeze. It's nature's way of killing us with a sneeze. The world turned upside down. Unite it through social distance. Divide it, we all save lives. Slow the spread, or we'll all be dead. The spirit of hope survives. From behind the sun, the war will be won. Once we've won the viral war, the smell of success will be sweet petrichor.
Thank you, Jim. Lovely poem. I mentioned the reading that we did with Diane and a couple other poets, and we talked a bit about some people shared that they had been writing a lot. This had been a time that they've turned to their poetry writing, and others said they weren't writing about it or weren't writing at all. So it's been interesting to see. I was wondering this evening if we'd see a lot of current poems about this current situation that's sort of all-consuming, or whether we'd see poems that were completely unrelated. I'm going to turn back over to you, Diane, if that's okay, and ask you to say a few words and maybe read another poem. Take it away.
Well, I think it's obvious. I have to get out of my chat for a minute. Hang on, everybody. Okay. Yeah, I'm out. I think it's obvious that what's on everybody's mind and how we all interpret it with gloom and doom, or expanding what and who we are, is fascinating to me. And every day I'm picking up little cues and clues about new parts of it. I have other poems to read, so I'll read a very short one, sort of related to the one that I read, because in a way this poem is about how things happen when you don't exactly expect them to happen. And this poem is called Collage. And I'm trying to locate it here, sorry. Give me a minute.
I put Diane on the spot here. I told her that I would just turn to her whenever I needed a moment to collect myself. So as she's looking for it, know that I did not let her know when I'd be turning to her. But back to you, Diane.
Okay, but now I'm ready, and ready for the next time if it happens. So this poem is called Collage. White is a piece of wire mesh, its jagged edges a hazard, look brilliant against the white cardboard it rests on. The grit of it made important by position and the slightest shadow it casts. It is art, some will say. The rational will call it the right place at the right time. Rotate the mesh to the left. Run a red string across the cardboard. The search for string will lead to a box of grommets or a pile of old letters. It's a very short poem.
Thanks, Diane. Again, really lovely as always. Thank you for sharing tonight and all the time with all these poetry jams that Diane must have hosted, I don't know, at least 10 poetry jams since I've been with Friends of the Arts the past couple of years. But as I said, Diane's history with Friends of the Arts goes all the way back to 2010. So a decade as our community poet. So thanks again for doing this and all you do. I will go next to Bill Ratner. I will unmute you here. Take it away, Bill.
Thank you, Jamie. This is great that you're doing this. I'm cheating a little bit. I'm a Washburn High graduate, and but I ate at Porky's, which I think was like really close to the border of St. Louis Park back in the 60s. I live in Los Angeles, and I'm going to read a couple of short poems. The first one takes place in the neighborhood, if you've ever seen the Laurel and Hardy movie, where they're trying to push a piano up this long set of outdoor stairs. That's right where I live. And the poem is about now and about that. And it's called Shelter Walk. I live in a neighborhood with hidden stairways. I've been walking a lot. I suppose I should feel proud. I've lost 6 pounds. Fear is a weight loss aid. I attended a virtual cocktail party, saw friends in 2 dimensions, pixels of advice and speculation. Every century, humankind must cleanse itself. The city has an unusual hush. The sun has set. There's a waxing crescent moon. I walk up steps, past neighbors' locked porches, windows cranked shut, doors they wish were more private. Faces disappear behind hedges. Backyard smell of clothes dryer exhaust. Underthings are draped over twine. Lights flick on when I pass. As I walk, I announce myself. Some people say hello. Others stare straight ahead. I shouldn't take it personally. Earlier, the postwoman talked to me. Her union is agitating for hazard pay. I was learning how it is to be close to people. We now keep a safe distance. Coughs and sneezes are virulent. I wonder about breath itself. Living is now a cottage industry. This next poem is definitely a Minnesota poem. Both of these I hadn't written for the first week of the sheltering in place, and then somebody said, write a poem about COVID-19, so I wrote that, Shelter Walk, and then I decided to write a Minnesota poem. It's called To See My Father Fall. My father's old Navy deck jacket smells of half a Tampa cigars and sweat. He's been wearing it since he pulled a canteen off a dead soldier in the fortress of Corregidor. He's never ice skated, but he tells me, what's to know? He's not reluctant, a welded man with dynamic range and style like nobility. He doesn't need to show me his medals. We cross Minnehaha Creek on a narrow iron walk bridge, soggy ice chunks underfoot. The asphalt roads are buckling. Come April, our street will look like a cracked moon. The squirrels are darting. The birds are silent. I would never shoot them. I don't own a gun. They've got a warming house where you put on our skates, right? My dad says. Fire hoses ice up Lyndhurst Field wide as a frozen lake. Skaters carve and pump and spin. Skates on, my dad takes mincing steps, jerks and lurches like a marionette with a string stuck, twisting and teetering, his mouth biting the air. His feet wrench out from under and he flops, a dark angel on ice. Man down, call for backup, he huffs in his South Chicago twang. Nobody's looking, but he knows that I know that he is now a gorilla on an iceberg, one eye closed like he's been socked in a bar fight. I want him to be in charge like he always is, with his stuff all figured out. I feel bad for him. I feel superior. I pivot and ice dance away. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Wow, that was fantastic. Great to hear a Minnesota poem all the way from Los Angeles. You're welcome back to Minnesota anytime. I think that I speak for everyone when I say that. Thank you. I see a lot of some friendly faces in the room here, which is awesome. Some folks who have been joining our weekly virtual happy hours. We've been hosting on Fridays at 4 o'clock that we're doing as long as we need to be distant from each other. So again, you can find that on our website if you're looking for more spaces to connect with some local St. Louis Park artists, whether you yourself are here in St. Louis Park or not. All are welcome to join us for those events as well. I'm gonna go next to Joshua Larson. I will turn it over to you, Joshua. Take it away.
Thank you. Glad to be doing this for the first time. Yes, I'm Josh Larson, and I am a St. Louis Park resident. And my wife, Karen Larson, is actually a member of the photo board. So I'm really glad to be here. Just a little bit about myself. I'm an actor and a musician, but I love writing. So I thought, you know, we're kind of artists now. We have to do different things to kind of stay alive and make new discoveries and to keep ourselves enlightened. So I thought I'd give this poetry jam a whirl. I thought I'd focus on poems. I call them phone poems. Poems that I've written in my phone when I have time. And then I'm going to read a few of those, and then I'm going to just talk about a little something I've been doing at home with my family. But I'm going to start. These are pretty short. So I'm going to start with this one. It's called I Am I. Globalism, joining, bonding, purpose, connecting in a positive way. Seeing the lights sway with the waves. You are you, I am I. Fill in the gaps, framing consciousness, expansion. This next one is, a lot of these are just untitled, and so I'll just start reading them. Looking, loving, basking, watching dandelion seeds go, destinations unknown, unconcerned, but not yet. Snow patches exist here and there. The sky keeps trying to produce more. Brown lawns soon will be green. That was written early last spring. This one is called Shape Shifting, and this was also written about a year ago. I know that I'm changing, and I know that it's good. Been hanging my head, wishing I could be something other than me. Inside, a war has been raging, pitting myself against myself, with nobody winning. Burning it all down, the wind blowing away the ashes. And then I just like to talk about something I came up with. We're all sort of stuck in our homes and have to think of creative things to do. I'm trying to homeschool my son, who's 12 years old, and trying to keep him engaged in writing in any way I can. So I came up with something called the Casting Lines Poetry Project, which what I do is I keep a notebook on the kitchen table, and I wrote the first line, but what I want my son and my wife to do is when they see it, they write the next line. And then whoever sees it next will write the next line. So we have something. This just started today, so I don't have a whole lot, but I like the fact that everybody contributes, but nobody knows who wrote what. So it's only 5 lines, and what I've decided is every 4 lines is the end of a stanza. So there's only one stanza and then one line to start the new stanza. So I'm just going to read what we started so far. And I had a prompt. So the prompt is spring. So the birds are singing high in the sky. The people stay home, sheltered. Cats participate, naps interrupted. The people fill the trails up all day. The road is long, winding. This too shall pass. And that's it.
Well, Josh, I think that if it continues or not is a pretty powerful statement. I love the idea. I see some folks in the chat here who agree, and I bet we might have some more people starting up that idea. That's awesome. Your phone poems resonate with me, both the words themselves and also the concept. That's about the only place that I write poetry, and I find I pretty much write poetry when we're going to have an open mic poetry jam for Friends of the Arts, and that's about the inspiration I need and to push myself to write something. So I'll read a little poem that I wrote in my phone the other day, and then I will introduce our next poet. So I call this, If You Ask Me How I'm Doing. I'm grateful for the decisions I no longer have to make. I will grow my hair out, just like my wife wanted. I won't choose which 2 hikes we'll do in Yosemite next month. I will make my own coffee every morning instead of grabbing it on the way to the office. I won't get to the gym 4 days a week. And I've been finding comfort in the familiar. Old episodes of my favorite podcast, my wedding playlist on Spotify, my Instagram photos from 2012, that beer I got super into last summer. So if you ask me how I'm doing, well, a trip to the grocery store the other day almost brought me to tears, but I think I'm doing okay. So that's what I get in my phone and my one poem until the next open mic that Friends of the Arts hosts. So I'm going to go next to someone who I've gotten to hear in a couple different settings. So I will turn it over to Ava Tronson here. Ava, I will unmute you and take it away.
Hi, I'm Ava. I'm a high schooler in St. Louis Park, even though I might not ever go back to high school now. But I have 2 poems. They're really short. So they told me connection was physical, and they told me that my hopes were whimsical, and the future feels very distant, and I must keep my social distance. But here I stay, and I can still love you from 6 feet away. I may be looking at you through a screen, but that certainly does not mean that you aren't seen, because human connection is stronger than lost direction. And then this one is just kind of like a spring poem, I guess. The morning sun was soft but cold. You wondered when it would ever get old. The leaves fluttered down and past your face. You tried to follow and couldn't keep up the pace. But the afternoon sun was golden and strong. It glittered through the clouds as you wandered along, until finally it sank below the trees, and all of your worries floated away with the breeze. Thank you.
Thank you, Ava. That was lovely. I've heard Ava now at a couple of open mics that Friends of the Arts has hosted. She was also a storyteller in the Community Storytelling Forum event on voting last September that we partnered with the city's elections department on. And I will go now, speaking of the Community Storytelling Forum, to Frank Friedman. He is the founder and volunteer coordinator for the Community Storytelling Forum, which under normal circumstances meets every second Thursday of the month at the St. Louis Park Library in the evening. And maybe Frank can share a little bit more about the Storytelling Forum, and I think he's got some clever words for us. Frank, I will turn it over to you. You are on.
Thank you, Jamie. Hello, everybody. I'm a park resident, and the Community Storytelling Forum is a year and a half old now. Our storytellers come from a wide variety of disciplines and experiences. We've had therapy dog trainers. We've had politicians. We've had someone talking about making the change from a slaveholder descendant to chasing the American dream. We've had Laurie Sturdivant from the Star Tribune, and Stevie Ray, the improv comedian, and others. So thank you for letting me put that plug in. I'm not much of a poem, but I do like to but I do like to dabble. My poem is called Ode to a Hoarder. As the dreaded COVID-19 virus came, some people really became insane. What to do to battle this flu, surviving in their homes was their game. How to respond to this terrible flu without much time to plan, that's true. The battle began, to the stores they ran. There was one critical item to pursue. Grabbing a cart, off they went to war, racing wildly to that one corridor, where before their eyes was the coveted prize. They'd take as much as their carts could store. 1 ply, 2 ply, it just didn't matter. To fill up the cart, they would not deter. In the rolls went, each heaven sent, carts filled so quickly, just like a blur. While the tragic news from afar did sting, somehow stocking up was a more important thing. Again they went, without repent. Their derriere's daily hygiene was still their king. So back to the store they went each day. No thought for others, what can I say? More rolls to get, without regret. Only empty shells make them stay. So what can we learn from this mess? The importance of sharing, I guess. We're in it together, whether flu or bad weather. Be kind to each other is what we should stress.
Thank you, Frank. That was quite nice. I think that's a couple of toilet paper references that we've had here. This might be a new record for a open mic poetry jam, but I know it's on everyone's minds these days for some reason. I'm going to go back to Diane here, and Diane, I will give you a on the spot challenge to introduce the poem after, who's someone you know, Mary Cain. So I'll turn it over to you, Diane, and then you'll introduce Mary. And if I think that takes us through my list of poets who have not yet read. So if there's anyone here who would like to read again, we've still got some more time. Feel free to click that participants button, click the raise hand again. We'd love to hear from anyone a second time. Looks like we've got one more reader who just raised a hand, but raise a hand if you want to read again, even if you've already read tonight, and I will turn it over to you, Diane. Take it away.
So I'm going to introduce Mary, yes?
Yes, but read something first.
Okay. Read something first. I'm going to read a non-love poem. It's called The One. You're not the one, you say. The words nick. I didn't make the grade, didn't flutter or flirt enough. Maybe I missed a cue too often in that recessed space where crumpled ego fragments spin off kilter, didn'ts bash into should-haves. I blame myself. But what about you, Mr. Looking for Romance? Your heart hoped for the right one. It skipped with accelerated beats, invented soulmate and sexy lover, the one you'd seduce with a home-cooked dinner served by candlelight or moonlight or strings of funky lights, a glow cast on your face, her face upturned as she traced your eyes with delicate fingers. No dream come true for you either. So here we sit, two ones, but not the one, both dinged in this madcap chase of finding what it is that makes 1 + 1 = 2. How's that for a change of pace? So it's really my pleasure to introduce Mary Cain, who is a poet with whom I read last week, and with Deborah Stone, another poet. And Mary has recently published a book, which she can tell you a little bit about. So welcome, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here. Thanks, Jamie and St. Louis Park Friends of the Arts for sponsoring this and remembering that it's Poetry Month. I love that. I love to hear all those poets reading. I'm glad to log on and see so many faces. And I was torn, Diane, about which poem to read, but since you read the Not Love poem, I have to read my Not Love poem as well. So I'm gonna read 3. Solving for X. When you speak of theorems, equations, square roots, I want to draw you near me, put a plus between us, calculate our odds. Math has never been so sexy. You serenade me with a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and before I know it, I'm considering the importance of calculus to my life. I'm thinking of becoming good at algebra, learning to multiply exponents, brushing up on my angles. Now I can see math is fascinating. I want you to rotate my axis, decipher my diameter, simplify my complexity, solve me. No, you say, I'm just a common denominator, not the mystery X you're looking for. I've mistook the question. The physics of nature, you go on, must you, is not the nature of the heart. In this problem, you cannot round up or down. The heart chooses precisely and imperfectly. While I'm stuck in the incalculable question, you have your equations to calm you. No, I say, I may be X in disguise. Try again. Sometimes there's more than one solution. Instead, I'm extracted, subtracted. No matter how many times I erase it or throw it up to the sky, love cannot be reduced to math. I actually had to take an algebra test to get into MCTC. I was going to graphic design school, and my boyfriend at the time helped me pass the test, and then he dumped me afterwards. So then that's where that poem came from. Quiet, which we're getting a lot of these days. A lot of us are. So I thought I'd read this one. Those summers were rusty. We did not buy anything new or eat shiny things, grapes, waxed apples. In the backyard, we left the claw tub to patina another season and did not invite anyone over. We tended the garden, just barely. The kale, sorrel were lush anyway. Burrowed carrots peeked out, dotting the soil with orange. We ate whenever we wanted. You loved me, but you never said so. The word carried the weight of things you didn't think you could do, not every day. We biked to the market, and I learned finally about quiet, the relief when the burden of speaking lifts, how much you can know from the movement of hands preparing dinner, the pulse of breath, dreaming. I stopped painting my nails pink, wearing shoes that clump. We slept in when it was dark, hoping our limbs would root. In the end, my presence was still too loud. He shooed me, a rat from his crop. If when I become old and I'm alone, don't pity me or talk. Don't bring me anything shiny or useless. And then this one is from my book that Diane mentioned. It's called Between the Stars Where You Are Lost. And it's mostly about childhood, actually. But this is a sort of every age kind of poem. It's called There Is No Meantime. Before we become shadows, let's hear the chime of the spoon as we mix the berries. Let's be curious how the purples and reds will assemble in our bone white bowl. Let's follow the notes of the music into our bones. Let's hold them there. Let's be held. Let's not say love is fleeting. Let's feel the leaves shake the rain from its tree. Let's watch the bucket fill with rain before we become shadows. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. That's really just lovely stuff. And as was mentioned, her book, Between the Stars Where You Are Lost, you can find that online. It's on Amazon. There's also an independent bookstore that's selling it. So you can look that up if you would like to get more of Mary's poems to have at home during this time and for National Poetry Month. Support local poets, order books of poetry at this time. A lot of poets have lost gigs and such. So there's one more poet here, or reader at least, who would like to read in this first round, and then we'll start turning to some folks for a second time. So I will go to Kimberly. Kimberly,
Hello.
Take it away.
Good evening, everyone. This is my first time here, and this was a very good way of social distancing, and so I thought it was a good opportunity to read a poem that reflects what I've been thinking about during this self-quarantine time, which is tomorrow is not promised to you. And this is not my work. It is written by Tammy L. Carroll, and it's entitled, let me put on my glasses now, Of No Tomorrow. As the sun gives us light every day, we think that life gives us the same guarantee, but taken for granted. We breathe the air and go on to each day, not realizing someday when we awake, there may not be a tomorrow. As yesterday disappears and becomes but a fainted memory, so does life. The sun doesn't always shine, nor is there always a blue sky. Clouds do come and the rain does fall. Living is more than just the existence of life. In the lungs that breathe and in the heart that beats, there is a soul of who we are. Yesterday may be gone, yet tomorrow may not come. Today is now. But like the sun in a day does go down beyond night's horizon, so does the life of no tomorrow. That's it.
Thank you, Kimberly, for sharing that. I think that's really lovely, and to hear a poem like that and to put it into this context. That's something, as I've been reading poems just from books that I've had and have loved some old poems that I'm now reading in this new way. So I think this National Poetry Month is particularly timely and poignant for us to sort of take old words and rethink them in this new context that we're all experiencing. I'm going to go to some poets or some readers who have already read once, but we'll make it back around. And again, if anybody wants to read again, feel free to hit that raise hand button and we'll get back to you. So I will go over to Deborah and Christopher. You are on.
Hi, this has been really great. Thank you everyone for all the lovely poetry that you've read and the courage to, because sometimes, I mean, it can be kind of unnerving to get in front of a camera, on a laptop, and thank you for the host as well. Jamie, you've done a really great job. I really do appreciate it, you know, just how kind you've been. And thank you again all for your poetry. I have one poem here to read, and then over to Deborah for one poem. So this poem is titled "To Break Free of Time Through Architecture, or We Arrive and Depart Unexpectedly." We were beautiful and lived in the future, but the past caught up with us like with everyone else who tries to break free of time through architecture. Because death is in every straight line, invested in every curve and plane, only apparent when time takes its toll on the Euclidean environments we erect. There is no rampart, real or imaginary, bubble, however perfect, that will exclude the gradual corrosion, then final rush into disillusion of all sensation and feeling. Walls are like bookends, and inside the contents of life, a story is bedded. Any number of people are there to be seen, to grow up, live, love, and die. Who is watching and seeing? Some say God. Others say the abyss, no sight. The spaces heroically go up, then decay. We arrive and depart unexpectedly. When we are not here, there is a hush. Like in a dream, you might come back, look and say, yes, here was my table and chair. There was my window with the view. The moon or star rose, and I was enthralled. Thank you.
Hi, it's Deborah. This has been really wonderful. And again, like Christopher said, thank you, Jamie, for being a part of this and hosting it. I haven't written any poetry around our current state of things. But the one that I found that I'm going to read right now, I just think gives a little bit of a hopeful uplift, you know, to that. So I don't have a name for it. I'm just going to start reading. We are not striving. We are sitting inside this wheel of life. It is rolling on, unfolding, revealing itself. Forces beyond the 5 rational senses move upon the subtle energies. Fine-tuned consciousness unwinds like an endless array of twinkling stars, coursing through all beings, brightly, lightly, going and coming. Through dreams, serendipity circumstances beyond explanation, shifting into intuition When clarity rings true, courage is the carrier of hope. Then rapturous smiles persist on beautiful bright countenances. Joyful tinkling laughter resounds and echoes, beaming down and around. There is always enough love and compassion. We are never wanting. We are ever whole. It is perception that makes it so.
Thank you for that, Deborah and Christopher. Again, thank you both for being here, joining us this evening. Really lovely stuff. Thank you. All right, let's see. We've got a couple more folks who are reading again. I will go next back to Los Angeles here. Bill Ratner, take it away.
Thank you, Jamie. This is so great. For some reason, it's almost easier on Zoom to sort of key in and sit quietly and listen. I really love hearing everybody's work. Right now, I feel like the guy in the back of the room. I got one more. This is from a prompt that was done yesterday in a group, the National Association of Bibliopoetry Therapy. And they gave us a prompt, a poem by a woman named Partho Sereno called How to Befriend Uncertainty. And that's what this poem is from. I'm having you over only because it's a species dictum. Face your fear, get up and dance, have a cigar, don't trip on the gorilla tape. So sit down. Let me get you some Parasite. I mean a frosted glass with a paper parasol for the sun. Open up, relax, take off your coat and stay a while. So he sits, proper, cross-legged, dressed in tailored tweeds like Rex Harrison and My Fair Lady. I serve him an English dark, a work tea, a tea that might allow us to ponder the truth. The truth, he says, and laughs superciliously. Look, young man, I've come to clarify a few things. What am I, a stick of butter? Look, I doubt everything I do, everything I think or say, everything I feel when I wake up from a dream of someone selling me thumbtacks or mornings when I wear the thinnest veil of regret. There ain't nobody out there. Oh, I used to believe the truth was in the newspaper, when the Times was an inch and a half thick, the velvet coffin they called it. Nice to work there and you never left. I need certainty. Is he a relative? Well, we're acquainted, he says, taking a sip of tea. I glance out my window and see shapes of the trees, a silhouette of a fallen brow, a round head of hair, an army of floating spoons. My guest belongs out there. He's a bit part player into cosplay, but I don't know who's behind the mask. I've done this thing lately with how I see people. I imagine what's behind their face, the bone, the gristle, the fear, the need, their ability to love. They are not the enemy. We share the same costume shed. So, Herr Unsicherheit, I'll be polite. I don't like you. I've worked my whole life to avoid you. I try to do without you each day and night and shadow walk down the hall in my bare feet and empty-minded car ride and strolls in the park where it occurs to me I'm only half awake. Well, you're an honest man, he says. I'll be going then. Well, how about going now, not then? You feel me? Yes, he says, and puts on his hat. Good. Bye.
Bravo, Bill. That was awesome. Thank you. Again, so great to have all of you here and all of you reading. It's so great to hear all your poems. And yeah, you said something about the Zoom setting, being able to really tune in. I also really appreciate everyone, again, in the chat, putting particular lines that resonated with them. It's awesome to see what's really landing for people. I see a hand raised here from someone who has not read yet. Sid Haynes, are you looking to read as well, Sid?
Sure.
All right, take it away.
This is my first time, and actually being on Zoom this way has actually let me gather my courage a little bit. And I pulled out a poem that I wrote about 2 months ago. It was sort of an inadvertent prompt that my daughter showed me, and I'll show you what it was as I'm reading.
Hey, Sid, we are not getting a video, so if you...
Not at all?
No, we've got a picture of you, but if you can click share video in the lower left corner if you're on a computer, or I think on mobile too.
Come on, wait.
Here, I just clicked ask to start video. Maybe that gave you a notification.
What do you see now?
There we go. Now we've got a artwork.
Yeah. There. Ah! Not gonna work. There. Okay. Well, that was the prompt that I got in the beginning. So here goes. It's called Misdirection. Birth doctor gasps. School kids laugh. Passers-by slow and whisper, albino. Headlight broadcasts my entrances. Old lady? Ghost? Then stolen glances. It's a simple matter. This time I'll stop the chatter. Waiting for an inch or 6 to pounce upon a quick fix, I don the shears. Violence ensues. Retreating fears escape abuse. Reflection reads new vision spun, the floor laid thick with justice done. But anger flares and shame made blush. Offense is theirs, not mine to crush. Too late. The savior blade unveils an open nape, soft prey new laid, and still there's no escape. At stomach's pit, rage left to sputter. My carving not but stirs the mob, and now they mutter, hatchet job.
Awesome. Thank you, Sid. That's a lovely poem and great to see the inspiration there behind it as well. Always great to take inspiration from other art forms. That's really, really lovely. I'm going to go next back to Anitra. I will turn it over to you. Take it away, Anitra.
Okay, so this is just a little short poem. I probably was feeling this after a breakup, so it's called Departed Twin Flames. I had to walk away. There was such an imbalance, and every part of my existence could no longer stand it. And I tried to tell myself that another kiss between us could further romance it, until I realized that I had emotionally given too many advances. I had no choice but to alter the narrative of our chapter and face the fact that for us, there is no happily ever after. But for me, independent of you, such a story existed. And our union had so many loopholes that it all became so twisted. And the beauty of it all is that you were meant to be a part of my existence. So now every force of nature has to play out its resistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Anitra. That was fabulous. We've had some interesting sort of love poems or relational poems here this evening. It's been great to hear from different folks about relationships. I think we've got 2 more folks who are going to read again. I'm going to go first to Josh, back over to you. Take it away.
All right, I want to do something a little offbeat here. This is from a one-man show that I wrote called John's Divine Comedy. It's a show I wrote in verse. So, but there's other voices than my own in this. You might recognize Marlon Brando as Zeus, Jim Morrison as Apollo, and myself as Harlequin. And again, it's from a one-man show I wrote called John's Divine Comedy. Here goes. Sing to me, O muse, about the heavy-handed Zeus, the god of thunder from another age, who spoke these words in a fit of rage.
My dear son Apollo, to whom I love, to earth I send you like a dove. The gift of archery you do bestow, but you kill the Cyclops with your bow. The laws of Zeus must not be broke. They are the shell that house the yoke. So to you, Apollo, I do decree that you spend a year in Thessaly. Your godlike powers will be gone, but in mortal flesh you will live on. Working as a shepherd for King Admetus, you will now be known as Phoebus.
Then to Zeus Apollo did speak, Father, it is punishment I do seek for killing a cyclops that fashioned your bolts, that fall from the sky like angry colts. Yet it was you who killed my son, the physician Asclepius. You would not be undone by his power to bring life to the dead. So you had him killed, which filled me with dread. So I lashed out, yes, it is true, by killing someone important to you. And I shall find atonement in exile, but cannot I play music all the while?
Ah. You can bring your lyre to Thessaly, if you can find it in your heart to forgive me. As a father, I've tried to do best and follow the heart deep in my breast.
Thank you.
Josh, that was amazing. Thank you. When you got up right up on the mic using the medium here in a way that I haven't seen, that's fabulous. I'm wondering now if we'll start to see, however long this goes on, some more use of the ins and outs of this virtual medium. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go back to our community poet, Diane Pecoraro. She'll be our last reader of the evening. So Diane, I will turn it to you with the incredible task of closing out the night here. So thank you all again. And Diane, back to you.
Thanks, Jamie. I'm going to read a poem I worked on today. It's an old poem, but I'm very interested in resiliency. And whenever I meet someone who exhibits resiliency, I'm sort of dazzled and want to write a poem. This poem is called Accent. As soon as he says down the hall, I know that he is from New York. New Jersey, he corrects me. Close enough. Greeter at the high-rise rummage sale, he wears a bold plaid jacket, a vivid tie, and a bright blue baseball cap, directs the traffic with voice and vigor, showing irregular teeth, a deep shade of parchment. All there, from what I can tell. Not a shy man, never was. His speech sings out his roots. Cop once, fireman maybe, a man of streets and alleys, born out east, in the Midwest a long time. I refuse to give up my accent, he says. Easy to give up the trappings of oneself at his age in this place where beauty dims, aches are recited, and mobility is assisted. He holds his defining traces tight. Today, others put out their dishes and books, their crocheted doilies for a few dimes or a quarter. Him, he is not selling a thing. And that is to close this wonderful reading, this wonderful event. Thank you, Jamie, for hosting, and to everyone that we've met tonight. I can't wait to meet you all again. I think we'd all say that.
Thank you, Diane. And again, thanks to everyone for reading or for just tuning in and watching and listening. This has been really fantastic. I think a great way to celebrate National Poetry Month. So to those of you who are writing, keep on writing. To those who have not, maybe try it out, try a phone poem. But I hope that you'll continue to find ways to connect creatively in these virtual spaces and to stick together here as we're all getting through this tough time. So I wish you all the best of the evening, and I hope to see you all soon. Thanks so much, everyone.